If you're a podcaster and you want to save time on newsletters, social posts, show notes, all that extra stuff that isn't really your podcast but needs to happen to market your podcast, check out Castmagic. Here's how it works. Start by uploading your audio, give it a name. Once it's done processing, you'll get an email and it'll ask you to name your speakers. Once your speakers are named, you just go over to the AI content tab and it'll generate an incredible amount of content for your podcast. Check this out. This is in real time. It's processing the transcript and creating the content right now. Done. So what do we get? Basically, we end up with title ideas for our podcast, keywords that we can paste into YouTube or our podcast hosting, an intro for the podcast if you're putting a raw recording in here, timestamped overview, again, great for YouTube chapter markers. Just paste this into the YouTube description. Key topics and bullet points, so really just point form notes about your podcast, clips and standout quotes and where to find them in the podcast, really handy. A script to make a reel of the podcast, a LinkedIn post, nicely formatted, a newsletter that you can send to your followers about this episode, a tweet thread, Instagram thread, and then you can customize these prompts. And this is the really powerful thing about it. So this is our pop-up podcasting custom show notes. So we have this little introductory paragraph and then some of the key topics and then a fascinating fact from the transcript of the podcast. A guest thank you email. I always encourage people to send a thank you email to their guest saying, hey, the episode's up. Thanks so much for participating. Here's a link to the episode. Please share it. That's all written up for you. Another version of an email newsletter. If you want a different tone, you can customize it all. It's really amazing. Social post in another format, a 600-word blog post about the episode. You can also create custom prompts that are like, summarize this podcast in French, summarize this podcast in Spanish. You can do all these things. And once you set up your template and you have it the way you want, every time you drop in a new episode, or you can even link your RSS feed to do it automatically, that stuff gets imported, transcribed, and all that content gets generated. And then you've also got Magic Chat over here, which is just a chat GPT about the content of this podcast episode. So I can ask it to summarize this episode in one sentence, and it'll go to work doing that for me. 5 seconds. Here it is, the one sentence description of the podcast. And then from there, you can save that as a prompt so that every time a new podcast episode gets added to this space within Castmagic, this prompt will run. So if you need a one sentence description every time, save it as a prompt and it'll go into the process for the next episode and the one after that and the one after that. So you can see how this would be a huge time saver. Check out Castmagic, link in bio.